What is up, Park Squad? This is Pod in a Park. My name is Cameron. You know who it is. I am with my boy, Marshall. So today we are going into Ep.8. We are going to be touching on a subject that everyone in this entire planet has been plagued with. But we're not going to go, we're going to be talking about the coronavirus. But we're not just going to be talking about, the facts, the case numbers, like you see on the media all the time. You've already heard all that. It's bad. We're going to be talking about the ethics of the coronavirus. Why are people not listening? Why are some people following? Some people aren't? What is our society going to look like after the coronavirus? These are all going to be some questions that we're going to be trying to answer and talk about today. So, Marshall, I want to ask you, why do you believe some people are having a very hard time following a very simple, social distancing and mask wearing guidelines?
Is it because of the plandemic?
Oh, plandemic. Interesting. What do you mean by that?
I don't know what I mean by that. I'm just saying it. And I'm sure if you asked other people, what do you mean by plandemic? They'd be like, well, they are doing it to destroy us. And like, well, who's they and what are they destroying? Well, the economy.
The lizard people.
The lizard people in the economy. And I was like, well, okay, they're not making too much sense. Anyway, I believe that it's difficult for people to follow rules because we're terrible at that. Mm-hmm. Our history tells us that we're terrible at following rules. It's actually part of human nature to not follow rules and to think that there's always something better out there and different and something unique out there, right? That's why we went from Africa to Asia and we crossed seas and jumped to islands, right? This crazy shit, completely unnecessary, but we thought it was necessary. So, our history tells us that we don't follow rules, and historically we've benefited from it. Now, there are instances when not following rules is highly detrimental. And that's why, animals are better suited for a pandemic, right? Because they don't give a crap about what rules they have to follow. They just do the same thing that they're historically supposed to do, and it works better. The problem with having a cognitive mind is now you have to make decisions, and what we're seeing today is that our inability to follow rules is actually killing us. Right.
So the way that I kind of see it, I agree with what you said. The way that I kind of see it, so a lot of other countries, they got hit just like America did, but for some reason America, we're still in it, right? A lot of other countries have locked down, have been successful in lowering the numbers of cases down significantly. Now, where I believe what happened with America is, one, our government, I believe, did not effectively address the pandemic, but, we'll get to that. I think, inherently, people in America have been given too much freedom. And Cameron, what do you mean? Bro, this country's all about liberty and freedom and doing what you want. I feel like Americans have been given too much freedom in their lives. And now when the government comes in, people are like, oh, yeah, the government wants us to, wear these masks, for sinister alternative motives. And I think no. I think the government's just like, I know you guys are just stupid enough that to not follow the social distancing guidelines, so we're going to order you to do it. You can't order me to do anything. I'm an American. So I believe the rationale for people is just that they've been given too much freedom, and as soon as we came, or the government came and started pulling away that freedom, it was just no-go. It was just absolutely, I'm not dealing with this. I get to choose what I want to do.
Kind of like a dog, where you got to be both kind of authoritative and free with the dog.
Right.
And if you're too much of either, when you try to do something, they can snap, right? So if you're too free on a dog, then when you tell your dog not to bite your kid,
right,
the dog just goes ahead and bites whoever wants to bite. But then if you're too stern with your dog, then it doesn't know how to do anything for itself. And there's that kind of balance that I think what you're saying is the government's kind of failed.
Yeah.
And I think failure in government's kind of a trope that you'll be seeing a lot.
Yeah.
And that's when you said, okay, we're going to talk about the ethics of coronavirus in this episode, the thing that, he just gets stung.
Oh.
This is where you get stung. This part is the wasps. They don't fly here. They just hang out on the ground with their butts up. I've been stung here so many times. But when you asked me this question, the ethics of coronavirus, to me it was the lack of government communication.
Okay.
I think part of our illusions with what freedom is, what democracy is, what freedom of speech is, are illusions with what we actually have. I think they're increased by our lack of understanding of what's actually going on in our government.
Lack of faith in our government too. I feel like the lack of trust in the media. Because like when like a media says like, oh yeah, like scientists say like, mask actually decreases the spread or decreases the distance that your bacteria is going to leave your nostrils if you sneeze or cough or you talk. People are like, oh no, that's not true. That's
Right.
not true. You know. And I feel like it's because they're like, oh yeah, we don't trust the media. We don't
Right.
know they're not saying anything.
And I don't
good.
trust the media either, right? But
Right.
I understand that a doctor is someone who's better to tell me what to do than a news reporter. And it's like,
Right.
okay, imagine like, okay, I don't trust the CEO of Apple, right? I have no idea what the hell's going on at the top branch of Apple, right? And I wouldn't let them make decisions for my life, right? But if I was able to listen to them converse with each other on Twitter and do live streams and give out public memos and have all their public records, and I was actively engaged in Apple's top governments, I feel okay with them making rules about us. And it's the same thing with government. And currently, we're treating our government like we treat the CEO of Apple. We have no idea what's going on. We only think about them when they're in the news, when they do something crazy, right? We have no interest in understanding what they're doing or how they're doing it or why they're doing it or what impact it has on us. And therefore, a lot of things are falling apart. Right? Our inability to have conversations is also because we're not engaged with our government. Our inability to listen to public health experts is because we're not engaged with our government. Our inability to stop little things from happening all around us, like the destruction of a tree that's 500 years old, or what they're doing right now, they're expanding a highway and they're destroying an elementary school playground, right? And it's like, well, wait, we don't want that to happen. You're making it so much more dangerous, but because we're so detached from our government, our world is falling apart around us. And now we're in a pandemic.
Right.
It was bad before. Things were happening. People were dying. Car crashes. Kids getting hit by buses. All this bad, terrible shit. And now it's a pandemic, right? So it's the same formula, but the consequences are much more widespread.
But it's so funny that you say that. That like there's so many problems that are occurring before a pandemic, and people don't care about car crashes and kill 100,000 people, a year. And a lot of other things going on, like the flu and cancer and stuff like that. But as soon as you label it, as soon as they labeled it the coronavirus, as soon as they labeled it, people just went bonkers and they just like went off the top and just crazy, right? And that was the beginning. That was the beginning. Then as time progressed, people were like, "Oh no, it's summer. We can." And I am a culprit. I have sometimes not social distance when I should have. But for the most part, I try to stay within the guidelines and not be around as many people as possible. But some people have just gone completely like, oh yeah, no, we don't care anymore. Like the Americans have the attention span of a squirrel. We care about something 2-3 months later. What is that? I don't care anymore. But so it's what you were saying too. It's like how the government just lacking in a lot of areas of the government just kind of made us not really well equipped to deal with this pandemic. I agree. We are a very wealthy nation relative to other parts of the world. We are a hub of scientific and technological advances. And we're a pretty smart nation, I would say, educated nation. And yet we can't handle it. We can't handle it. People just do not want to listen, and they don't want change, and they want to be stubborn with their freedom and their liberties. And one thing I want to add about touching on liberty, when the corona first happened, and I was seeing people that are like, oh yeah, I don't want to wear a mask, and I was like, how dare you? Like, just because you're not a high risk, in the high risk category for getting coronavirus and dying because you don't have like a pre-existing condition, or you're not over 65, or you're not like a baby. How dare you say you don't want to wear a mask because you don't want to, but that person over there that is a high risk and wants you to wear a mask, or they're wearing their mask and you're not. If you're saying that the government can't infringe on your liberty and your freedom, how are you going by, or how then you are going and you are taking liberty and life away, inalienable rights away from that person who is like, you know what, I want you to wear a mask, right?
And if your freedom comes at the price of someone else's freedom, it's not freedom.
It's not freedom. It's not.
It's a
random.
lie. You're being lied to.
Right. Right.
Fox News is lying to you, telling you to flex your First Amendment right and don't wear a mask. That's a lie. That's pseudo freedom right there.
Right.
And it's everywhere.
Yep.
I do want to say about the titles thing. I know I just want to
Yeah.
just go back to it. It was really interesting, and it made me think. You were like, okay, once it was called coronavirus, again, we were able to latch onto it. Right. And what else have we seen? Well, in most recent history, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, right? And those, we were able to latch on to Black Lives Matter when there was a title on it, right? But what about the 19 months before that, before the last killing of the black boy or girl that went viral, right? Well, there was just crickets, right? And we went to something else. Just like climate change, 12 years. No one gives a shit about climate change. But when it's 12 years, which is something that came out in 2018, great. Now there's a big push. Or Greta Thunberg. It's a title.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And even, okay, now let's take that a little further. And this is, it's not really attached to it, but back to the government. Why does Trump use titles? Right? A crooked Hillary. Hillary's nobody until he uses crooked Hillary.
That's how you get people to rally behind it. That's
Summer
how you
is
get people
nothing.
to attach identity and identify with it if you give it a title.
Why do we care so much about summer?
Because
summer, right? Summer. We don't say winter. It's summer, and it's become commoditized. It's become commercialized.
Right. I get what you're saying. So it's like, it would almost be like, how do you say it? Like, just the idea of someone, being corrupt in office, just saying like crooked Hillary, it's like, that's bad and that shouldn't be happening. But like, if I don't have like an identifying like, symbol label on it, like I'm not really just going to attach to it. And as soon as you're like, oh, crooked Hillary, it's like, oh wait, no, she is corrupt. She's a horrible person. I mean,
Right.
So I get that. Yeah.
And you can plug that in with everything. Your brain doesn't care about it until there's something that clicks. Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, I can't breathe. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And all that, it really sticks in your mind. And that's marketing, right? And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to diminish but it's all marketing, and our brains are stupid. Our brains are very primitive, right? But we have gone a little bit
easily
off
manipulated.
topic.
Yeah.
And so it all plays in. I think you can kind of see where we're coming from when we say that our lack of empathy for what's going on in the world is not new, right? And our obsession with conspiracies and with fake news and lies, it's been happening, it is happening, and the consequences are just going to get worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, climate change is still here, and it's having devastating effects on other parts of the world, right? We'll keep talking about it, right? Or we'll keep shitting on it, saying that it's a lie, saying it's not true, living our happy little lives as people just drop all around us, and that's what's happening with COVID-19 as well.
Right. Is there any do you have any sort of because I kind of want to go into what maybe life will be like now after coronavirus? So
End it, brother.
Yeah. So I was gonna ask you what do you think? What do you think life's gonna be like after this is over? Because like when is this over? When is this over?
That's a great question.
When is this over? Like, what happens in business? Like, we don't want anyone in our stores. Like, we want to like just make it completely to go. I'm just using that. Oh, sorry. I'm using that completely as an example. It's like, well, then, that part of restaurant going out, that part of entertainment is now gone. When are people going to be like, no, I'm actually going to continue to wear a mask? And then the government, this is just totally, going crazy, but everyone wears a mask still. Well, now we have to invest in facial recognition technology. We have to be able to see like what you look like under a mask. And I don't know if you heard about Apple, but I think Apple had one of their updates on their phones for their 10 and 11s that you can unlock your phone through the mask. You can wear a mask and go like that. And what? Bro, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that is crazy.
And it's a great question. What will life look like after this?
Yeah.
And I think one of the most important things to kind of take a step back when you hear that type of question is, what is this?
Right.
Is it coronavirus, which again is just a title? It's just a catchword. What is coronavirus? Well, it's pain and suffering. It's viral transmissions. But if we're trying to prevent pain and suffering, well, then we also got to talk about opioid overdoses,
right.
Suicide. We also got to talk about vehicle crashes, right? So what are we actually trying to battle? And we can't just be fighting blindly, fighting the coronavirus, fighting lies, fighting patriots who don't want to wear masks. Like all that shit's dumb. It's stupid. And people are going to keep dying if that's what we're fighting for. honestly, what I would like to see in a future after this is a more empathetic future, right? Where if you don't want to help others, there is no place in this country for you.
Right.
Because it's actually detrimental to all of our health, right? And that's where you get very socialist, right? Where it's like we all have to work together for our own health. And that's what this coronavirus is showing us. That without the collaboration of every person, without them wanting the same goals and being willing to give up some of their own freedoms for others, you can't get anywhere. And maybe this is the start of the socialist revolution that we've been kind of bordering on in America, that Bernie Sanders has been hinting at. But our generation is going to take it and say that antiquated idea of socialism, that stereotype, stigmatized socialism, we're not having that. We're here to build a new America like we talked about in the last episode.
Right.
And it's going to be a better place for us to live.
Now, the scary thing about what you just said is you want to see a more empathetic society within, America. And that, we all are working together. And I agree. I want to see after the coronavirus, I want to see after the coronavirus is done, I want to see people start to engage more in the issues that surround them and do things like, oh, I had a social distance to prevent coronavirus. Well, I took identity in that, and I, not saying me, but I'm saying, someone said, I am going to do as much as I can to prevent the spread and not contribute to pain and suffering that the coronavirus is bringing. I want people to use that mentality and start attaching themselves to other things. I want someone to be like, okay, well, now let's label the climate crisis, right? It's there. It's not going away. So now use that ability that you use to attach yourself to doing good for the coronavirus. I want you to attach it to the climate crisis. Okay?
Right.
Scary thing that you when you were talking about was you said that you wanted people to be more collectively helping each other. I think we have seen in America that just cannot happen. I feel like a good amount of people. We live in a bubble. All right. I've seen the news. I've looked into it. We don't really know the sentiment that is all spread out through this country. There could be everyone in the other parts of the country could be like, oh no, this coronavirus, I don't care. I'm not wearing my mask. I don't care. We're opening up. I don't care. We live in the Silicon Valley. We're very closed off little bubble. What if Americans inherently just are self-driven and they don't care and they won't form together? They won't come together to battle the next thing and be empathetic to each other because I care about myself. I don't care about it. Showed. Oh, you're infringing on my right to wear a mask. My right. Yeah, but what about the people that literally are high risk and really do not want you next to them spreading whatever you possibly could have to them, right? They couldn't handle that. Americans could not handle that.
And that's okay. Your inability to deal with our future is not dependent on my future. Your inability to cope with change does not impact our ability to create it.
Right.
And by that I mean, if we need to become our own country, if our bubbles need to become our own countries, because when you go to rural America, like even just a couple dozen miles from here, right? They live on these people who live outside of urban areas. They don't rely on city provided services, right? They burn their own trash and they only make a little bit of it, right? They get their own water from a well, right? And now this is my own personal experience, my own family and friends who live lives like this. They don't need socialism. They don't need healthcare because they don't have health to take care of, right? That's not their values like we have in a city. And that's purely from my own experiences, right? When we say rural America, people always want to reference rural America. It's just people have different needs and experiences. Okay, we got needs in San Jose. If we are a bubble, Cameron, then let's fortify that bubble a little bit, okay? And let's not make it so fragile to popping and just spilling out everywhere else.
Down.
Okay? Let's help our neighbors in our little bubble. If we can build something better here, then so be it. And if we need to become our own country, okay. What? What? Oh, you got me sick. What? No. Do we really have to do that? Okay. That was 250 years ago. Our founding fathers thought this was never going to happen, right? The American experiment, which I know we wrote down in our notes, that was a far off dream. Something where everyone's free and there's no kings and there's no kings. Yep. That was a fever dream in someone's night. We're here now. Okay? What's the next fever dream? And we're going to create that. Gosh darn it. Right? Thomas Jefferson didn't have all the answers. But Cameron Kempsky does. Right? Who says he doesn't? He doesn't, but he might.
Right. That's that CSU education right there, bro. It gives you all the answers, baby.
I think Thomas Jefferson went to San Jose State too, right?
No, he founded San Jose State.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he still teaches there, right?
Yeah. Well, the San Jose State on the East Coast.
San Jose State
Yeah,
University.
in Maine. Yeah. that one.
Maine. Dude, that's cool. That's cool. Well, you learned it here, folks. Thomas Jefferson goes to San Jose State University.
All right. Well, thank you, Parkers. Thank you, Parkers. Thank you, Park Squad, for tuning into this episode. This was actually a really enjoyable episode. Got to talk about the coronavirus. Once again, in the description below, you will see our listener reviews. We really appreciate if you guys can continue to keep those coming in. Our GoFundMe is actually halfway done, so shout out that. You know, we have some really, really awesome donors who are giving us money so that we can continue to spread our message. But yeah, we will catch you guys next time. Peace.